Hello, everyone, and welcome into this episode of the Bear Down Buzz podcast. As usual, myself, Eli, joined by Isaac and Joe. Once again, gentlemen, it's just disappointment following disappointment. The Bears fall to the Minnesota Vikings, swept in the division by Minnesota at the least. There's still a few division games to go, but it's not trending in the right direction. Joe, I will start with you. This was a very disappointing loss to Minnesota, but at the same time, I feel like most of us saw this loss coming. But I'll start it off with you. Your kind of biggest takeaways from this matchup against the Minnesota Vikings.
So the biggest takeaway I have from this game is God does our third down defense suck. It's been bad all year, but man, the Vikings converted three third and 10 or longers in the first quarter. They did that uh, in the first game too, in overtime in the fourth quarter. But watching them just convert those third downs, third down and 10, it was third and 10, I think third and 15 and third and 17 or something like that. Uh, and it wasn't back to back, but I think it was on. I think two of them were back to back, and then one of them was on a separate drive. After that, I was like, I didn't have any confidence that we were going to get any stops. So I'm surprised that we forced them to punt a couple times yesterday or Monday night. That's kind of my biggest takeaway. I mean, play with some pride on third down. How do you let them get 15 yards on a third down, 10 yards on a third down? It doesn't. Wow. I mean, I will say the defense did look like it played with a lot more energy yesterday or on Monday night. Still, the third down defense isn't good enough. Whoever our head coach it becomes next year, whoever we hire, they need to fix third down defense and make sure just play more aggressive on third down. Don't guard the sticks. Uh, guard the offense, tight, send pressure, and make sure that they don't get the first down. Look at freaking what Minnesota did. They made sure when we were on third down, they sent not everybody, but they sent people. Not that they don't blitz already, but they sent their guys. And the Bears only had one third down conversion yesterday, which was A, terrible, but B, was because they were in like third and 8 and long all game, or maybe not all game, but a lot of the third downs were long, third and long, and they sent pressure. So yeah, I just thought our third down defense was terrible all game, and it made me really mad because we didn't have this issue at the beginning of this year and at all last year. I mean, at the start of that game losing streak, it's since then it's been terrible. But yeah, um, I'll toss it back to you, Eli. What was your biggest takeaway from this game?
Yeah, so you know, as you kind of mentioned, the third down defense has just been terrible, at least in recent history and throughout the year. But so that's a great takeaway. But I think my biggest thing would just be, offensively, nothing really looked cohesive, and that's just been the story for the last few weeks. And we kind of mentioned it beforehand. Caleb Williams hasn't played well. I would argue he's played decent in the past few weeks, but the last 2 weeks especially, he's kind of fallen off the rails. And it's not only him. It's hand in hand with the offensive line. It's hand in hand with the receivers, the play calling, everything in particular. It's just there's no pinpoint reason for it. But the drops on Monday was the one of the biggest issues in this matchup. Now, again, this isn't just on the receivers. It's putting the players into position to succeed. It's being that guy like Keenan Allen having 4 drops throughout that matchup. He is an all-pro in the past. That is a veteran wide receiver who, before coming to Chicago, that was his strength. It was those 50-50 balls. He had great timing. And as with many players when they come to Chicago, what they excel at just isn't strengthened by the coaching staff. So I don't know whether or not it falls entirely on him. But last night, Keenan Allen especially didn't have a good night. Rome had that killer drop in the end zone that could have put up 6 for the Bears, and just overall, that receiving room just didn't have a great night on Monday night. And it's not just specifically on that skill group, but right now there's just no leadership whatsoever on any aspect of this Bears organization, and that just you can see it on Sundays, Mondays, Thursdays, whatever day the Bears are playing on. It just feels like they go out there and hope for the best, and there's no leading voice that the players are buying into, and that's what you run the risk of, of firing a head coach mid-season. And I'm not saying it was the wrong decision by any means because it needed to happen, but there's you hope that Thomas Brown kind of took over the locker room and gained that respect, and the Bears, will at least look more respectable moving forward. But you could argue that this Bears team now looks worse than it did under Thomas Brown than it was under Matt Eberflus. And I'm not saying that's what I think. I'm just saying that it just, defensively especially, it wasn't great under Matt Eberflus, but he made some adjustments in the second half. We didn't see that either last night or on Monday night. But there's to me, I guess the biggest takeaway is leadership. There's nothing there right now, and that's going to be the case for the remaining games of the season. But Isaac, I'll toss it to you. What was your biggest takeaway in this loss to Minnesota on Monday night?
It's funny that you bring up leadership because Jalen Johnson, one of our captains, yesterday in Monday's game against the Vikings, he didn't have his captain C badge on his jersey, and a lot of people were saying, "Oh, maybe he got it stripped or something. Like he's no longer a captain." And he ended up saying that the equipment manager forgot to stitch on the C on his jersey, and I just think it sums up what you were talking about, how this Bears team just has no leadership. There's nothing to build upon on this team, and it's not going to get any better this season. Let's hope that whoever we sign as the next head coach, they come in and they're able to fix that. But my biggest takeaway for this game was something that a lot of people took out of proportion, and it was towards the end of the game. Caleb Williams, he threw a kind of like a sideline or cross body pass to Keenan Allen, and he got hit really bad by Jahad Ward. And after they were showing him going to the bench and basically grimacing on the side, he was kind of leaned over, and a lot of people were taking this as a behavioral thing where he was just being a big baby and stuff like that. That's not what it was at all. And if anyone watched the game, they would understand that Caleb Williams was getting destroyed. And it goes back to, Ryan Poles and his inability to have a good offensive line. And, Caleb did say after the game that he has a couple of bruises and contusions, but he does have to do a better job of hydration and recovery. But he was talking about like this was basically like the last three games that it's happened. But the thing is, it's like if you draft a rookie quarterback, how do you not have the intentions of building around him? And the thing that I want to talk about too is the Bears, like everyone was saying that the Bears had the best situation for a rookie quarterback and arguably in NFL history. And I thought so too, me included. So I'm not taking myself out of this. And the reality is it's not true. The thing is it's like Ryan Poles did all the splashy moves. He went out and traded for Keenan Allen. He used the other first round pick on Rome Odunze. He signed DeAndre Swift literally the minute free agency started. He signed DeAndre Swift. So he did all the flashy moves, but he didn't do what other teams do, and it's built from the foundation up. So if you look at all the contenders right now in the NFL, they all have two things in common. One is a great offensive play caller, which we obviously don't have. And the second thing is a top tier offensive line. If you look at the Lions, if you look at the Bills, the Broncos, like they all have that stuff, like all really good offensive lines and all really good head coaches. So, or offensive play callers. So, it's just one thing after the other. It's more cracks in the system in terms of Ryan Poles. It's looking like it's not going to go well for him, which brings me to my next topic, and it's trading for Micah Parsons. So the thing is, there's Micah Parsons basically after the game was like on Sunday, he was basically talking about how he wants to stay as a Dallas Cowboy, and he was saying but at the end of the day, the NFL is a business, and like if he ends up getting traded, he's gonna understand. He's gonna still play the hardest he can and stuff like that. Um, and I want to ask just Bears fans that are listening to this, it's at first like you would think maybe no, like this shouldn't happen. We're not in the position to trade for Michael Parsons, but when I was really thinking about this, I was thinking about this from Ryan Pohl's perspective, where he might be out as a GM after this year. And it's kind of like, do I want to make this splash play? Kind of like what Ryan Pace did when he draft or traded for Khalil Mack. Do I want to go out here and use this draft compensation and trade for a player that is a three-time All-Pro, former rookie defensive rookie of the year. He has 49 sacks and 245 tackles in under 4 seasons, and he's like, you could say what you want about him, like his demeanor, his character off the field, his whatever, his podcast and stuff like that, but he is a really good player. I just wanted to bring that up because it could be a possibility. I mean, we didn't never really knew that the Bears were gonna end up trading for Khalil Mack, and then they did. I'm not saying that Michael Parsons is at the level that Khalil Mack is, but he is on that similar level, I would say. So I want to ask you guys, what is your thoughts on the Bears potentially trading for Michael Parsons? And then I'll start with you, Joe, and I'll ask you, what are your thoughts on the Bears potentially trading for Michael Parsons?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Mike is a great player. I typically I would be okay with it, but no. Bears need to use because what it would take to get Micah would probably be at least two ones and a two. And it'd be the one from this year, the one from next year, and the two from this year. I'm not doing that. I want to draft offensive line. I want to draft pass rushers. Yes, Micah is definitely a proven commodity in this league. We did already trade for a proven commodity in this league in Montez Sweat. That worked out last year, not so much this year, but he's also been hurt. So I don't know how much equity you want to put into him being hurt compared to how he played, how he's playing this year, or if you just think he is kind of just an average defender, and the Bears overpaid for him. But whatever. I'm not trading for Micah Parsons. I'm using the picks that it would take to get Micah Parsons this year and next year, maybe if you need to, but definitely this year on defensive line, on offensive line, getting best tackler, guard, or whatever you need, probably in the first round, and then drafting a defender in the second round. Or if you want to switch that over around, you can. I'm saying this right now. I'm taking an alignment in the first round. I don't care. I mean, a lot of people are saying, with the pick the Bears are probably gonna have, it might be too early to take a lineman because apparently people don't think there's a lineman that's worth a top 10 pick in the draft. Some people, like on Bears Twitter, like some re- not they're not reporters, but they write and talk about the Bears. Um, they think that there's not a lineman of not a lineman that's uh good enough to take in the top 10. But I would take a lineman in the top 10, offensive lineman in the top 10. Uh, Now, even if you are reaching, I mean, at this point, Ryan Poles needs to reach for whatever he can because the offensive line is not good. Um, and they need to replace everybody but Darnell Wright. And even Darnell Wright, um, people people with Darnell Wright want to call him a bust and not good. I think he is an average player that's still rising. He could become great. Some people want to call him above average. He is definitely in that average to above average category. I think he's about average though right now. Not saying he is not going to get better because I think he's still getting better. He, he did have that one bad play yesterday or on Monday night against the Vikings, but I do think Darnell Wright's good. But to the point about Micah Parsons, yeah, I'm not trading Micah Parsons, even though he's a great player and the Bears would definitely benefit from having him. It just would take way too much, in my opinion, to get him. I'll pass it over to you, Eli. What do you, how do you feel about the Bears maybe trading for Micah Parsons?
Yeah, I'll kind of piggyback off of everything that you said because I think you hit it right on the head. Um, Trading for Micah Parsons would be incredible for this Bears defense. You know, it would free up Montez Sweat. It would make all of our role players. It would elevate them to another level. And I think Gervon would have an incredible year. with having Sweat and Parsons on both sides of him. But at the same time, yeah, the capital would just be too much, too much for this Bears team to handle as it is right now. Now, if you told me that after going into 2025, if you told me that the Bears, had lost in the divisional round and they had a record of like 10-7, and they were just one play away from furthering themselves in the playoffs, and you think for an absolute fact that if you had Micah Parsons, this team is a Super Bowl contender, send it. They'd go right away. Obviously, that's not the case. So my answer is also no. Just just because I don't think that the Bears are a Micah Parsons away from winning a Super Bowl. There's still so much with this roster that um, you kind of alluded to, Isaac. We thought going into this year, this team had put Caleb Williams in the best possible situation to succeed for a rookie quarterback. And obviously, again, that's not the case. I was in that same boat too. Everything on paper looked to be perfect for Caleb Williams to be able to come in and establish himself as a franchise quarterback right away, which I still think he is our franchise quarterback moving forward. But there's still a lot for him to grow as a player and a lot of things for him to clean up. And bouncing off of the offensive line conversation into the draft, because it is a hot topic right now for Bears fans. We're 4-10. That's pretty much all we have left to look forward to now is the draft moving forward. But yeah, I think I agree with you, Joe. Right now, Darnell Wright is that average right tackle. We saw him at his best when him and Tevin Jenkins were on the same side of the offensive line. I think that's something, if you're a GM, Ryan Poles looking straight at you, that's something you need to address, is that when you have a good interior, your tackles will play better. It starts from the inside and goes out. So if you can have a player, I'm not saying they're going to find a player as good, if not better, than Tevin Jenkins in free agency or in the draft right away. But if you can get a strong interior, then Darnell Wright, who you spent a first round pick on, is going to perform like a first round pick. And if you draft a left tackle in the first round, there's several names out there. I won't get into that, but um, it all starts from the inside out. And I know we've kind of strayed from the Micah Parsons conversation, but that's where it all starts. So I think with the capital that you have right now, you have to continue building your team rather than trying to put a band-aid. And Micah Parsons is a big band-aid, so to speak, but uh, putting a band-aid on a broken glass window is what we are right now. I think that would be the type of move that is. But uh, again, to kind of answer your question the same way as Joe did right now, no, I would not trade for Micah Parsons. But at the same time, to kind of tail off this conversation, it wouldn't surprise me if Ryan Poles did that in the final year of his kind of GM prove it year. I guess it would be the type of move that I could see Ryan Poles making just to give himself as much time as possible to be the GM of the Chicago Bears. But um, kind of moving on from the Micah Parsons subject, it was and it has been a large topic of conversation around the league ever since Matt Eberflus was fired, is who is going to be the next head coach of the Chicago Bears. And there's been several media members out there that have given their opinions and their sources and everything like that. Um, but a profound one to me, at least, he's not really a reporter, so to speak, but he is a big voice in sports media. Colin Cowherd came out and basically said it right away. The Bears are a train wreck, which is correct. The Bears need a proven commodity, which, everyone has a different conversation in regards to that. But he came out right away and said Mike Vrabel is the solution to your problems, and that's who you need to hire to instill a culture, be a leader of men, and be the guy that can kind of fix the Chicago Bears. Now, Joe, we've discussed this in previous episodes, and most people that listen probably know your opinion, and I know your opinion for sure. What do you think of Colin Cowherd coming out and saying that the solution to the Bears' problems at the head coach and for this organization is former Titans head coach Mike Vrabel?
Listen, I get it. Uh, I'm not doing it. I don't think the players will like that a lot. DJ Moore was on uh what a Mullion Hall this morning, like he on Tuesday morning, like he always is for his weekly hit. And they asked him what he wants in the next Bears head coach. He said he was an offensive minded guy, which everyone, I think most fans agree with. I definitely agree with. I think that's the way you're going to maximize Caleb Williams' potential. Um, Now, like I said, I get wanting Vrabel. He's a proven commodity. He has found good head coaches before. Or sorry, he has found good offensive coordinators before. I was wrong before when I said he never had a 3,000-yard passer. Uh, Ryan Tannehill did break that twice. Now, I think once was with Arthur Smith, and once was with whoever the I forget who their offensive coordinator was before him, but he did it twice. Once 2018, once 2019. The 29 or I think it's 2019 and 2020 maybe. Either way, he did it with once with Arthur, at least once with Arthur Smith, and then he possibly did it with the guy with the coordinator before Arthur Smith too. Um, and then so but yeah, I wouldn't. So Faber might know how to find good offensive coordinators, but he also might hire the wrong offensive coordinator if he was to come here, which I feel like that would happen because we're Chicago and have we just never do anything right. Uh, Something that I forgot to mention earlier. This is going back to the game, real quick, but something what points this out greatly is the sequence that happened yesterday when the Bears were on the goal line. Doug Kramer did not check in with the refs at fullback, which caused a penalty that on a touchdown that happened. Uh, so no touchdown. The Bears moved back 10 yards. Then the Bears got it to the 1 yard line again on first down, or I think it was like the 1.5, maybe two. But either way, they got back down to the goal line, and on the next snap on the goal line, there was a holding penalty. So and they ended up taking a field goal on that drive. But again, that just points to whatever can go wrong for Chicago will go wrong. So hiring Vrabel might be the leader of man choice, but I feel like he's not going to hire the right offensive coordinator because he's coming to Chicago. And like Eli mentioned earlier, somehow every time someone comes to Chicago, they just perform worse than they did before. Um, so I'm not going with Vrabel, and but see where Colin Coward's coming from. How about you, Isaac? What do you think of Colin Coward's calling for Vrabel to Chicago?
Look, this is something that I keep on going back and forth from, and I see the good and bad from each side of hiring Vrabel. It's like the Bears really do need someone to change the culture, and it is scary to hire someone like Ben Johnson that's never been a head coach before, and to just ask him to not only change the offense, but to also change the culture of one of the most dysfunctional teams in the NFL. It's a tall task, and it's something that I understand. Like a lot of fans are really worried about, but you know, at the end of the day, I feel like the Bears really need to hire an offensive coach. I feel like it's screaming out of Hallis Hall. Please hire an offensive minded head coach. Please, like we really need this right now. I would go to say as much we need it more than someone to change the culture because we have guys that are not divas. Like they all want to win. And obviously when you're not having the season you expect, there's gonna be some frustrations and there's gonna be some reactions out of the guys in the locker room. But I kind of like the more I think about it, I feel like Vrabel might be a safe option, but I don't know if he's the right option if that sounds like a lot of Bears fans, I think that's where they're at right now. Um, so my answer would be like I wouldn't be as mad about it per se, but I would prefer if the Bears could just make the obvious hire and hire Ben Johnson because I feel like he's the guy that we need to take a chance on. And you know what? Like I love how he implements different aspects of the offense. Like I this could be a whole other discussion where he uses a lot of like offensive linemen for different plays and different schemes and stuff like that. But I feel like for the Bears and especially for Caleb Williams, they need to pair him up with an offensive minded head coach just because I don't want to ruin Caleb Williams' development because we end up choosing another defensive-minded head coach and he doesn't get the offensive coordinator hire right, like Joe was mentioning earlier. And I did see that Vrabel did mention, it was a report somewhere that Vrabel would hire either Josh McDaniels or another guy to be the offensive coordinator. And a lot of people are gonna say, "Oh, Josh McDaniels, I do not want to hire or have him as the offensive coordinator. He sucked when he was with the Raiders." But it's a different thing because when he was with the Raiders, he was actually the head coach and not the offensive coordinator. And as an offensive coordinator, when he was with the Patriots, he was really good. But I don't know. I just feel like if you end up getting an offensive minded head coach, you're killing two birds with one stone. You're finding the offensive guy, and he's also your head coach. So you don't really have to find an offensive coordinator that is really good at calling plays per se. But I wanted to toss over to you, Eli. Give us your thoughts on whether the Bears, you would be open to the idea of the Bears hiring Mike Vrabel, and if not, who would be one of the guys that you would choose instead of Mike Vrabel?
Yeah, so again, you laid it out very well with Vrabel and the whole conversation surrounding him. Uh, Looking at his past three coordinators that he's hired, I believe it was Matt LaFleur in 2018, who obviously has gone on to become a great head coach in this league for the Green Bay Packers. Arthur Smith from 2019 to 2020. Todd Downing was the 21-22 coordinator, and the 23 season was Tim Kelly, and their current OC, obviously, well, I guess going back to whenever uh, Mike Vrabel was fired, so the last two wouldn't count, but LaFleur and Arthur Smith were his two offensive coordinators, if I'm reading that right. But so technically he has a good history of hiring those coordinators, so I get that part of it. In the last, I think, year or two in the Titans, he had a sub 500 record. Then, after uh, Derrick Henry and AJ Brown leaving that team, it all kind of went south, and then the defense fell apart, and everything that they were built on just slowly trailed off. And Ryan Tannehill threw for 3,000 in that 2020 to 2021 season. So, thank you, Joe, for that. But so that kind of paints the picture for the quarterbacks under Mike Vrabel. Now, I also do go back and forth on this every day because part of me thinks it's just a gut feeling to me that at the very least it would be an improvement from Eberflus. And again, that's not saying much. An improvement from Eberflus would be league average. That's a top 16 guy. Now, can you win a Super Bowl with that? I don't know the answer to that question. But I think, and you laid it out very well. Shoot for the stars, shoot for the sky, and hire Ben Johnson. That's just the simplest answer you can put it. He's proven time and time again with the Lions that he can run a competent offense. Now, again, it's not a straight transfer from Detroit to Chicago in terms of personnel, but you have the capital to address that in free agency and the draft. If he wants to build a superstar offensive line, now it's not going to be week one. This is by far and clear the best offensive line in the NFL for Chicago. If he were to be hired as the coach and do all that in free agency in the offseason and everything. But at the very least, you give him a fighting chance that first year under Ben Johnson. And then moving forward, you still have the chance of building that under Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson. But yeah, to me, there's those are the two options. I think everything else outside of those two is just noise. Now, obviously, if they're a competent organization, which again, they're not right now, and they never have been, but those are what the best organizations do is they interview multiple candidates, they come to their conclusion on who it is that fits them best. And again, you could probably argue that's what Chicago has been doing, I guess, but it doesn't work out. Um, but yeah, I'm leaning Ben Johnson as of right now. I won't be completely upset if they hire Vrabel because I get the the argument as you kind of laid out to Isaac. But yeah, I'm Ben Johnson to me is the no-brainer. Just go for it and hope it pans out in Chicago. Um, but with that being said, do you guys have anything regarding this head coaching search, this past game against Minnesota, the remaining schedule going forward? We're nearing the end here. The Chicago Bears have a 4-10 record. Two division games left to go in Detroit and Green Bay, and also Seattle coming up in the next three games. But Do you guys have anything else regarding the Chicago Bears? All right. Well, with that being said, I think that is going to wrap it up here on this episode of the Bear Down Buzz podcast. As always, be sure to go like our reels, like us on TikToks, excuse me, subscribe on YouTube, watch our TikToks, reels, everywhere we are. Be sure to follow along and repost, retweet, like everything. And as well, look out for these guys' articles on Twitter. They do a great job as usual. They've wrote several recent stuff regarding the Bears, the Chiefs. Joe, I know you mentioned that you've recently gone on to starting at least to writing about several teams across the NFL, MLB, and certain things like that in your new role. So congratulations to you. But as always, be sure to like their content as well. And we will see you next time as we preview, I believe, a matchup against the Detroit Lions next week, if I'm not mistaken. But again, with that being said, this has been the Bear Down Buzz podcast, and we will see you next time.